Hi guys, my name is Emily, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a requested video, so I put out a call, I think on both Instagram and in the comments of one of my wrap-up videos. The minute this question was asked, I was like, I need to talk about all of these things. So today I'm going to share with you 5 books and then the directors that I would like to make that filmic adaptation. So the first book I have here is Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater, and this is standing in for the whole Raven cycle. So this story gives me very strong Harry Potter vibes. There is a really strong core friendship between 4 boys who go to a private school, and then they sort of bring in a girl named Blue, and they're going on this fantasy adventure together throughout the series. They're looking for this dead king. The plot isn't super important to me. The characters' relationships were super important to me. One of my favorite parts about the Raven cycle is the female relationships. So Blue has a really matriarchal life and household, and it's just so quirky and colorful and like textured in terms of the ways that Stiefvater describes it. The person who I would like to direct and bring their very like unique aesthetic to this series would be Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson has a very distinct style. I think what I like about Wes Anderson's films are that they feel really like textured and tangible and quirky, and I think that those aspects would lead to a really, if not directly faithful, because I think that Wes Anderson would definitely take his own spin on this story, but I think that just the style of stuff that he does would work really well for creating that really unique, quirky, textured world of the Raven cycle. Wes Anderson would make a really interesting director for a filmic adaptation of the Raven cycle. So the next book I have here is Akata by Nnedi Okorafor. So this is basically, like in the loosest sense, the tagline for this is Nigerian Harry Potter. It's about a girl who discovers that she has magical powers, enters into this magical world in sort of a parallel world, Nigeria, much in the same way that the wizarding world exists parallel to the Muggle life in London. She is learning from teachers how to do magic, and a core group of 4 who sort of balance each other out perfectly have to work together to save the world from a wizard magical person. I don't know what they're called here. I'm blanking on what they're called. So I would love to see an adaptation of Akata Witch done by Hayao Miyazaki. So Hayao Miyazaki has done things like Kiki's Delivery Service, Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away. He already sort of works within the realm of fantasy. This is fantasy. What I really like about his films are their sort of timelessness. Like, I find them really hard to place in terms of history. Some parts seem sort of nostalgic and old. So I think that that sort of out of time, out of place feeling really lends itself to a fantasy space, because I think Akata Witch is sort of contemporary, but I think you could also very easily remove it from a specific time and place. This would lend itself to being animated. One of the things that I almost regret about the Harry Potter series is that they went live action with it, because I think it would completely change the franchise, but you could do quite a lot of things differently with an animated version of Harry Potter. I would like to see an animated version of Akata Witch with quirky creatures. Just the aesthetics of his films I think would be really neat here. I would love to see Akata Witch adapted by Hayao Miyazaki. So the third book I have here is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So this is the story of Baz and Simon. They are characters that appear in fan fiction Kath is writing in Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. And so with Fangirl, we see that this is sort of the equivalent of Harry Potter. It's a huge fandom thing. It's witches and wizards and magic school, and Rowell then went and provided us with what feels like the last book in that series. And what this book is really about for me is the queer relationship between Simon and Baz, which I think is beautiful and wonderful and intimate and sort of what we needed in the Harry Potter series. Like, it's a school, it's a boarding school with pubescent witches and wizards. They're unsupervised a lot of the time. There's zero sex. There's maybe sex implied when Ginny walks in on Percy and his girlfriend doing something. This actually gives us the like sex and relationship in wizarding school. So I would love to see Jakob M. Erwa. I'm not sure if that is how you would pronounce his name, but the gentleman who directed Center of My World, or Die Mitte der Welt, which is an adaptation of this novel, actually. I like the way it was filmed, and I really enjoyed this is gonna sound bad, but I liked the way that the sex scenes were filmed. I think it's a cultural thing, but like no shying away from nudity, no shying away from physical intimacy between two men. It's really clean, it's really beautiful, it's really aesthetic. I think you really get the feeling of the intimacy in the relationship between Phil and Nicholas. And I would really like to see that sort of care and passion for a young queer relationship, again with all of the beautiful aesthetics, applied to the relationship between Baz and Simon. And I would love for it to be like equally uncensored, I suppose would be the best way of saying it. I would love to see this. The next book that I have here is The Lesser Blessed by Richard Van Camp. So this is a piece of Indigenous literature. This is Larry's story. Larry is a Dog Rib Indian. He is living up in Yellowknife in Canada. So it is set in the 80s, where we have the AIDS fear. We see the effects of Catholicism on an Indigenous community and the effects of residential schools, the effects of colonialism. There is some stuff happening with the Wetago, which is an Indigenous figure. A human goes Wetago when they start to cannibalize, basically. So the Wetago is, or Wendigo, is attached to starvation narratives. What I'm seeing now in a lot of Indigenous literature is the revival of this figure that exists throughout Indigenous literature and Indigenous storytelling. It's a revival of this character, and this cannibalism is not literally eating people this time. This sort of sickness that used to be tied to eating people is tied to the cultural trauma. Obviously, I'm a white settler Canadian, so take what I have to say about this with a grain of salt. That idea of exploring the other, of exploring race in a colonial country. If anybody had to direct it, like if I were to pick a big name director, I would love to see Guillermo del Toro. Please excuse my pronunciation. Del Toro has done things like Pan's Labyrinth and the Best Picture winner, The Shape of Water. I think there's a lot of thinking about what it is like to be the other in a white nation. So you see these creatures that sort of stand in for the racial other. Lindsay Ellis from, blanking on her channel name, Lindsay has done an essay on this, and I will link that down below for you to watch because it's very good. The ways in which that he uses metaphor in his films would work in conversation with what's going on in The Lesser Blessed in terms of the other, of cultural trauma. Del Toro would make an interesting adaptation of The Lesser Blessed. The last thing that I have here is Lady Castle by Dawson, Woods, Farrow, and Nalty. This is a graphic novel that tells the story of a castle of women who come together to lead themselves. It was political, feminist, and funny, and I think that seeing this adapted in the style of the Galavant TV show would be really fun. So Galavant is a musical medieval TV show that's very much spoofy, very much self-aware. I think in many ways critical and funny at the same time, and I think the fun, like, upbeat songs and musical numbers and sort of over-the-top caricatures would be a really fun way to adapt this graphic novel, because I think that they have just a similar tone. They're both so fun in their criticism and fun in their critiques of society and gender and sexuality. I think the same style of adaptation would be really fun for Lady Castle. Those are some fairly specific book to film adaptations that I would like. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, both on my choices, because I did get kind of specific and explained why I think these directors and their sort of style would work for these books. Let me know your thoughts on that. If you could see somebody else doing that sort of adaptation, let's chat. Let me know what is one book that you would really like to see adapted to film. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!